Hey everyone, Gill Gross here post-match, and it is time for a preview of the 2022 Roland Garros men's final between Rafael Nadal and Casper Ruud. Nadal goes for RG number 14. I don't even remember. I know that there's like a nickname for each one, like that comes from the Roman. I think it's Roman, right? Like the dodecima and stuff. I don't even know what it is at this point. And also major number 22. Casper Ruud, first major final. Congratulations to Casper, regardless of what happens on Sunday. It's going to be a good experience for him, obviously win, and also probably lose. It's going to be a great thing for his career that he gets to experience a major final at the age of 23. I am going to get into my keys to this match, how Nadal wins, how Ruud wins, and then I will give you my pick. But I'll start by just talking about what I've seen from each player throughout the tournament, beginning with Rafael Nadal. Let's go all the way back. He wasn't the favorite coming in. And that's not my opinion. That's what the odds said. Let's be honest about why. The foot and nothing else. Rafa started the year, won the Australian Open, undefeated until the Indian Wells final. You would think, okay, well, if that's what he was on hard court, certainly it's going to look really, really good on clay court. Unfortunately, had the rib injury, came back, was healthy in Madrid, wasn't healthy in Rome, and it was a concerning way to exit against Denis Shapovalov. That's why I wasn't the favorite. So at the end of the day, we've reached the final, and Nadal's foot has, I don't know what kind of intervention there's been from cortisone shots and pain killing and all the things, you know, the reasons why his doctor might be there, right? I don't know. But the important thing for him is that it has not hampered him. And that's why we're here with Rafa in the final. Because other than that, it's just par for the course. Now, the technical aspect of his game has been, to me, on point all tournament long. The forehand looked incredible from the early rounds. The serve and return, very good. Until really the Zverev match, but I don't worry about that at all. I found those conditions to be rather borderline inhumane, sauna-like, and I just thought, I throw that out the window because I just think that the conditions made it impossible for either player to really play their best. That's how I saw the match. I know that some people may have disagreed with when they saw the match, but that's what I saw. So you can disagree all you want, but I just felt like until that match, Nadal has looked great technically. Now the physical side, that's also been impressive. The Nadal and the FAA and Djokovic matches back to back, in particular, the way his endurance held up and the fact that he still had his full explosivity and strength in his legs throughout the duration, that was a big deal for me. Not necessarily surprising given what we saw in Australia, but still impressive. And lastly, his confidence in the big moments has been obvious, and that is by far the most important thing about Rafa's tournament so far. Think about how well he played in the fifth set against Felix. I mean, that was a 10 out of 10 set. Think about how well he played in the tiebreak against Djokovic in the fourth. Nearly perfect. Think about how well he played. Think about the fact that he played the best points of the match against Zverev once he got down 6-2 in the tiebreak and beyond in that first set. I mean, Nadal is really trusting his game under pressure. That has been the most impressive thing. Besides his foot staying healthy, which has been the most important thing, the most impressive thing has just been how Nadal has risen to the occasion time and time again. As for Casper Ruud, he did prove me wrong. He proved me wrong. Now, to me, he really struggled early on in the clay court season, suffered losses to players outside the top 20 on numerous occasions in the lead up, which is something that we hadn't seen from him at all in about 2 years' time. And then he came to Rome, he came to Geneva, Rome semis, Geneva final. For me, the results weren't enough, especially considering the quality of opponent. for me to ignore his struggles leading up to that point. That was obviously a mistake on my end. And I was also very much against him playing Geneva. I felt that was a bad decision. And that might have also played into the fact that I was skeptical of Ruud being able to play his best at RG. And I also had major questions about his return of serve, which he has emphatically answered in pretty comfortable wins over Hurkacz and Cilic, who pretty much bring as much heat on the first serve as anyone is going to. So Ruud has been awesome. He has proven me wrong. I'm a fan of his, so I'm happy that he did. And he is very much a deserving final, especially considering how much he's improved over the last 3 years. We've seen it before our eyes, the physical strength and the legs and the serve and the big match confidence, which has really been a process for him and a work in progress. With that being said, we also have to acknowledge the draw. I power ranked him 8th coming into this event. He hasn't played anyone above him in my French Open power rankings. The best player he played is Hubert Hurkacz, who I had in my next out category, not even in the top 10. So good draw. Ruud takes advantage, conquers the mental demons in the third round against Sonego, which was key. And here we are, Nadal versus Ruud. As far as tactical keys go, I want to start with how Nadal wins. I always start with the favorite. Well, all Rafa needs to do is put the most comfortable pattern he has into use. There is nothing Nadal would rather do than attack the righty backhand. He can play with other baseline patterns. We see him change it up against Novak Djokovic, for example. But it's really very much about attacking the righty backhand for most of the players who are put in front of Nadal. And against Casper Ruud, this is obvious low-hanging fruit. Much more so than it is against a player like Alexander Zverev or Daniil Medvedev or Novak Djokovic. Players who I think present a unique challenge to Nadal because of how solid they are on their backhand side. Ruud is not quite that guy. However, Nadal is going to have to attack the backhand in a very particular way. He can't expect to win the match just by sitting behind the baseline and hitting to the backhand and waiting for Ruud to miss. That's not going to be viable, and it's not going to happen. Ruud's backhand is very slow, but it's got a lot of height and it's got a lot of topspin. And particularly on clay, it makes the backhand difficult to attack. The ball bounces high and the ball is not very fast, and Ruud is always recovered to the middle. So it's not easy to attack a high, slow, heavy topspin shot on clay. It's just not. And that's why on this surface, Ruud can protect his backhand, and he can just trade and wait for forehands. It's a very, very, it's a very easy thing to do. I mean, even like you think about what Ferrer did on clay with his backhand, how Ferrer managed his backhand on clay. Ferrer is going to go cross court, and he's going to wait until he gets a forehand. Like, that's it. And that includes chances to run around and hit a invertido, as he'd say, or an inside out or an inside in forehand. Ruud does the same thing. So you can have plenty of success on clay without being aggressive and offensive on your backhand. But what Nadal will do to attack the backhand is attack the net. Luckily for Nadal, he does that as well as anyone. Serve and volley, serve plus approach, mid-rally net approaches. In every opportunity possible, Nadal needs to go to the Ruud backhand and come to net. And that is where a high, slow, heavy topspin ball goes from the least attackable ball to the most attackable ball. Ruud doesn't hit passing shots very well on his backhand. He is pretty good at getting the ball to dip down low, which will bother any volleyer who's not very skilled. Nadal, being the elite volleyer he is going to be able to play good volleys even below his waist level. And that really requires opponents usually to hit good passing shots, and not something that Ruud does very easily. Serve and volley especially is always exposed with Ruud's deep return position, and I'm curious to see if he'll change that up. Ruud also has a tendency to slice his backhand when he's on defense. That will also give Nadal a chance to move forward. It'll give Rafa even less reason to hesitate on coming forward when he's able to get Ruud in defensive positions on his backhand. So expect Nadal to live at the net on Casper Ruud's backhand. Nadal also needs to make Ruud think about his runaround forehand. Nadal has been excellent at this tournament on the counterattack. There have been key moments against Djokovic and Zverev, especially. First set against Zverev, fourth set against Djokovic, with just massively clutch forehand counterattacks, some of them passing shots, some of them not. But Nadal is amazing at this, especially on clay. Nadal is amazing at this because of his strength and precision when he's on the run. And when Ruud runs around his forehand, he puts himself out of position. Most of Ruud's runaround forehands are going to be inside out. The open court becomes the forehand side, and Nadal has his forehand down the line. You might say, Gill, Ruud hits forehands inside out all the time against everyone he plays. So why is it any different against Nadal? Think about the difference. First of all, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but vast majority, maybe about 80%, maybe 90% of Ruud's opponents are righty. So I want you to take the average righty backhand and imagine Ruud hitting an inside-out forehand. And now you have the righty backhand on the run against Ruud's very heavy forehand. Righty backhand on the run. Now replace that average righty backhand with Nadal's forehand and think about the difference in threat there is between the average righty backhand on the run down the line versus the Nadal forehand on the run down the line. The difference could not be larger, and that is why, while Ruud can easily just run around his backhand and hit inside-out forehands with complete freedom and no fear of leaving the open court, against most opponents, it's just not the case against Nadal. It's going to be important for Nadal to execute that shot, because if he does, it's going to make Ruud even more hesitant and press even more when he does inevitably put himself out of position to hit those forehands. And maybe if Nadal is good enough at executing this, Ruud will actually accept more backhands than he normally would. We'll have to see. The last thing I want to talk about for Nadal is the mental component. It's very interesting in this case. First of all, on Rafa's side of things, second Sunday on Chatrier, it's different. I've never seen Rafa not perform in excellent manner in a Roland Garros final. He has never been pushed to 5 sets. He has never lost. So I can just leave it at that. But when it comes to Ruud, he's 23 years old. In 2005, when Rafa won his first Roland Garros, Ruud was 7. Ruud grew up a Nadal fan. He has watched Rafa dominate in these finals his entire life. He has never seen anybody beat Nadal in these finals. He is now that guy. He is now that guy. It's him. The guy who he's watched on TV lose for 15 years. Then there's the added factor of he attended Nadal's academy and partially credits Rafa and Tony and the good folks at the RNA Academy. Sorry, just RNA. Otherwise, it would be Academy. He credits them partially for his rise and for helping them in his career. So there is a big brother, little brother dynamic here. And Ruud is going to need to try to muster a Djokovic-level self-belief. And he needs to be out for blood. And I'm slightly afraid that he's going to be a little bit human in this situation. It would be entirely understandable if Ruud had a little bit of an inferiority complex in this match. But he's going to need to try to not have that. Mental side of things, huge advantage for Rafa. Now for how Ruud wins. It's going to have to be a serve plus one bonanza for Casper Ruud, and it can be. He has one of the best in the business, top 5 easily when it comes to serve plus one. Ruud's serve is one of the most improved components of his game, actually the most improved component of his game. It is deadly. It is underrated at this time. He hits his spots. He hits really big, and the second serve is especially impressive. Triple digits by Ruud, oftentimes on the second serve. And Nadal's serve strategy on the first serve of standing deep and lofting high returns through the middle of the court is super effective against most players. Most players will struggle to generate pace off of a high looping return up the middle, and Nadal will get to neutral very easily. Ruud is actually in that elite camp, that Nadal level camp of forehand pace generation. And Ruud will probably get a lot of first ball forehands given Nadal's return position, and we'll see if Nadal, what the pace is like on Nadal's return. Maybe he'll up it if he thinks that's a good idea. But usually he's not concerned about hitting the return very hard. He's just concerned about depth and height and spin, topspin. Less so topspin, more depth and height. But Ruud actually has the unique ability on his forehand probably to actually do some serious damage off of these Nadal returns that are high and slow. And again, even if you're looking at like a forehand of Djokovic, it's going to be hard if Nadal gets the depth on that for Djokovic's forehand to do +1 damage. But Ruud is literally, I think, pretty much unmatched. I mean, Ruud, Nadal, Berrettini team. I think that's the camp of guys where sometimes you hit a deep return on clay and it's a perfect return, but their forehands are big enough that it just doesn't really matter. So it's reasonable to think that Ruud is going to find plenty of +1 forehands, and he needs to do a lot of damage on it. And I think maybe he can. The second key is that righties, I think, realize now they need to keep Nadal under pressure on his backhand. Zverev did a phenomenal job of this early on in the semifinal with his cross-court angle forehands. And as we've discussed at length, it was a big key in Djokovic's win over Nadal in last year's semifinal. Ruud has the weight of shot. I also think Dominic Thiem has done this quite well in a lot of the best of 3 wins he's had against Nadal. Ruud has the weight of shot on his forehand to keep Nadal in jail in that corner. And the reason weight of shot is very key is if you don't hit the ball very hard and heavy or on an extremely sharp angle, Nadal will very simply pattern change down the line or hit a heavy enough backhand cross court that suddenly you don't have the quality on your next forehand that is required. But I think Ruud actually has the ability on his forehand to keep Nadal in backhand jail. That can be very effective against Rafa. And Nadal has looked somewhat shaky on his pattern-changing backhand down the line, particularly in the first set against Felix, where it was terrible, and in the first set against Zverev, where it was average to below average, his backhand. So there have been moments. Ruud needs to hope that he gets those moments. And I think those are the two main dynamics that could favor Casper Ruud. Now let me go to my pick and my conclusion. First of all, I want to mention that Nadal did catch a break physically that is going to be key. If Zverev won that second set in those borderline inhumane sauna-like conditions, which, I mean, I don't know what to say, but I don't know if there's a solution, but the air circulation and the humidity level, I mean, it was pretty bad. But if Zverev won that second set, I think the match would have taken it out of both players completely. Not to say that they would have had nothing left for the final and they would have had no chance, but I'm pretty sure the match would have been decided based on which player hit empty first. And I think there's a high likelihood we would have seen cramps, and that's how the match would have ended, because there is a limit to what a human being can do. And I'm pretty sure Nadal and Zverev were quickly approaching that limit. So that was a break, and that's going to be key. I like Nadal's advantages in this match better. They seem much more likely to pan out. You know, you could see Nadal's return, keeping Ruud's serve +1 at bay. You could see Nadal being able to kind of keep out of that backhand jail effectively and control more of the points and not let Ruud really execute that pattern on a regular basis. I feel like Nadal's advantages seem like more of a sure bet that they're going to pan out. I also have concerns about Ruud's resume. He's 5-16 in his career against top 10 players. It's not good. And even like an Andrei Rublev, who I would compare Ruud to in this case. Rublev is a player who has beaten lower level competition on a very impressively consistent basis and is clearly a top 10 player. And Rublev has a reputation of coming up a little bit short against the very best in the world, but even Andre has 3 times the number of top 10 wins that Ruud has. Rublev is 15-24, a better record. Again, Ruud is 5-16. And at the end of the day, pre-tournament, I would have been very confident that if Nadal made the final, that he would ultimately win. And after seeing the fortnight play out, I am still there. My pick is Nadal in 3. Hope you enjoyed the match, everybody, and hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.